Hey guys, it's Joshua Klein, your host of the NFL Draft Podcast, the Draft Beard Podcast. We have an exciting episode tonight. Tonight, we're recapping another division in the NFL Draft. We're going to hit up the AFC East and the 4 teams in that division. But before we get there, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share this with all your friends. If you know anybody who is interested in the NFL and the NFL Draft, please share this video with them. Tell them about my channel. If you're a friend of mine, if you could do the same thing, like, subscribe, and share, I would really appreciate it. It helps me grow my channel. So with that, let's dive into the teams of the AFC East. And my least favorite draft class of the AFC East was the New York Jets. Moving on to the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, and my favorite draft class of this year's AFC East teams is the New England Patriots. We'll get to all those teams over the next few minutes, but let's get started with the JTS Jets. Yes, first pick in the first round, they traded down from 10 to 11, moved on one spot, picked up some extra assets for later in the draft. They ended up drafting Olu Fashanu, the tackle from Penn State. I like him a lot. He has a lot of potential to maybe develop into a Pro Bowl type tackle, a bookend tackle. The Jets didn't overthink it and give Aaron Rodgers another weapon in Brock Bowers, which a lot of people had him mocked to the New York Jets. Great job by the Jets. You're not going to be able to utilize the last few years of Aaron Rodgers if you can't keep him upright. If you saw last year, he didn't last very long at all. That offensive line lets him down, tears his Achilles, and he's not even there for them to be the quarterback. So you really need to protect Aaron. Getting him another weapon isn't going to benefit you at all if he can't stay upright long enough or have time to actually complete it to those said weapons. So great job picking up Olu Fashanu. That is a phenomenal pick. That's a good job in the first round by the New York Jets. I think he's going to be a bookend all-pro tackle for hopefully years to come. So looks like they hit a home run, hopefully, with their first round pick. They didn't have a second round pick, and then you get into the third round. They get kind of an enigma wide receiver in Malachi Corley. You look at him, and he has boomer bust potential. He's going to be a yards after the catch type of guy. He's a guy that you're going to have to scheme for. The kind of the lazy man's player comp is Deebo Samuel, but really Malachi's kind of a one type of receiver. You got a game plan for him, and hopefully the Jets can do that and utilize his game breaking ability. So that could be a really good pick in round 3 to pair with what they already have in their roster with Wilson and others on the roster. And then we get into the fourth round. Listen, I'm not a fan of Braylon Allen at all. Running back out of Wisconsin. He's kind of a big bruiser type running back. We'll see if he can do something in the NFL. I know his player comp was A.J. Dillon. I feel about the same as Allen as I did A.J. Dillon. I didn't like A.J. Dillon at all coming out of Boston College. I kind of feel the same way about Braylon Allen. I barely had a draftable grade on him. I could be totally wrong, but I just don't know if his style is really going to hold up and perform well in the NFL. But they drafted him in the fourth round. They take a flyer on Jordan Travis out of Florida State, which is fine. I'm all for taking a flyer. I don't know if you wanted to get a quarterback that can learn from Aaron over the next couple of years, I may have maybe tried to target Spencer Rattler, but Jordan got injured. I don't know if he has that much pro potential. Obviously, coming off the injury, it's not something that you were going to have him be your backup anyway. And then you come back with Isaiah Davis, running back out of South Dakota State. I like him better than Braylon Allen, and you get Isaiah Davis in the 5th round. And then Quantez Stiggers. This is a very interesting pick. It's one of the rare picks, players that have been drafted that did not play college football. It comes from the CFL. And if you can cover in the Canadian Football League and do it rather well, he won Rookie of the Year in the CFL. He has a really phenomenal story. If you want to go out there and Google him and Google his story, it is a really fun and it's a crazy story and good for him. I think this is good potential to turn out to be a really good pick by the New York Jets. They already have one of the best cornerback rooms in the entire NFL. So I think this is a phenomenal pick by the New York Jets in the 5th round. I really would have liked to seen him, being picked up by my Detroit Lions, but that didn't happen. So I like Quantez a lot. I think that has some really good potential. He can come in and maybe develop into a quality cornerback in the NFL and just continue that storybook story. And then Jalen Key, the defensive back out of Alabama, was signed in round 7. He's really going to be probably nothing more than a special teams player. But overall, I think they had a really good impact in round 1. They got a starting left tackle and helped filling a glaring need. So I don't want to dog them too much. But the rest of their draft, I don't know. I just don't know. Like, you got a player in the 5th round who's probably not going to see the field. Qantas Stiggers needs time to develop. You picked up 2 running backs. You already got Breece Hall on your roster, and you drafted 2 running backs. One of them who I just kind of they to fit the system there. Maybe. I think, Malachi could be a really fun player. So overall, I don't know how much impact they got on the roster from all of 7 of their picks. So, good job filling a glaring need that they really have, but I don't know if any of the rest of the roster, they're going to see much impact from this draft class in year 1. And maybe, I don't know how much they'll see in year 2. Jordan Travis is a backup. So, in the bottom tier of my NFL draft classes this year, one good home run pick, and then maybe a lot of, players that hopefully they can pan out, but you could really see that draft class not having much of an overall impact. Next up, we'll travel north in the state of New York, and we'll head up to Buffalo, where the Buffalo Bills, they had an interesting draft. They had some really good picks, and then some picks I'm puzzled by. And we'll start off with, their first pick of the draft was Keon Coleman. Now, they're going to get hammered for trading with the Kansas City Chiefs and trading down and allowing the Kansas City Chiefs to do what they did in the draft. And it's not that I don't like Keon Coleman. I do. I know that he took a lot of hits in the pre-draft process because he didn't have, the blazing 40 time and all that kind of stuff. But I think Keon Coleman can be a really good wide receiver. But he's going to have to be schemed a little differently. You play him out of the slot. You get him on the crossers. But that's not how Buffalo has described how they're going to play him. They want him to play him as a true X receiver on the outside. And I don't see where that's Keon Coleman's strength. I like Keon Coleman. I think he's a hilarious person. If you watch, some of the post-draft stuff with him talking with the Bills players. I liked him when he was at Michigan State. Even being a Michigan fan, you can appreciate really good quality players from your opponents. I think he can be a good NFL receiver. I'm just not sure that Keon ended up in the best situation for him to succeed. You're going to have to use him a certain way. And just from what I'm hearing, what Buffalo's offensive game plan is with him, I don't know if that's really going to mesh with Keon. So hopefully that works out for him. And maybe Keon's going to surprise us all and it'll be, develop into a good X receiver. And I just don't see that that's the style of game that he was good at in college and that could he excel at the next level. Not that I'm dogging the pick for a wide receiver. I'm just not sure that it's going to mesh with the play style that Buffalo wants versus the play style that Keon Coleman looks like he could be, his best at. Then you get in round 2, I think you get a really good football player in Cole Bishop. They really need some help in the back of their secondary. They had to let a lot of pieces go to some salary cap stuff. So I think Cole Bishop is a solid, true, just football player. He's going to be able to come in, contribute right away. Dwayne Carter, again, he's a player. He's not a high floor defensive tackle out of Duke. He's a low ceiling, high floor type player. I like him as a good, maybe a solid rotational piece, can kind of do, maybe he's a jack of all trades. He's not a really good pass rushing defensive lineman. He's not a great run stuffer, but he's kind of adequate in all of the above. So I think that's a good starter. Ray Davis out of Kentucky, that running back, he's an intriguing player. I think he can be a really good contributor as number 2, number 3 running back. Around 5, picking up Cedric Van Pran in the 5th round. Great value. I had Cedric as a player who I think can develop into a starting center in the NFL. Getting that type of player in the 5th round is exceptional value. Good job by Buffalo there. And then you come back in round 5, pick 160, and you get Edifon Afacio, linebacker out of Washington. Hopefully I didn't slaughter that name. I apologize if I did. He's a really athletic freak. He can cover, man. So that is a good job getting a good coverage linebacker in the draft in the round 5. Javon Solomon, a developmental edge guy who can really rush the passer. He's going to come in and be a situational pass rusher. So I think overall from rounds 2 through 5, they did a pretty good job at getting some players who can play for them. Maybe not high ceiling players. They didn't really get players that you're going to aim for the fences, but I think they got some good quality starters. And the rest of their draft, as you go through with Taylon Grable, Dequan Hardy, I weren't really high in either one of those players. I think I had them on my draft boards. And then if anybody out there heard of their round 7 pick, Travis Clayton from England, who is in the International Pathway Program, you are a bigger junkie than I am. I didn't have no idea any opinion on Travis Clayton, never heard of him. At least with the Lions player that they picked, Giovanni Manu, at least I kind of heard of him and saw some things about him. But this one was completely out of left field. I don't know much about the International Pathway Program players that the NFL has now. We've had some players in the NFL make it on rosters from that program. But that was overall, I think the Bills got some players who are going to be able to see the field in year one. I don't know if any of them have all-pro type potential. You get some quality starters. When I first looked at the draft, I think I was a little lower on it as I digested it, over the weeks or so post NFL draft. It's a much better draft than I originally thought. I think I was a little harsh because of the Keon Coleman pick and the fit. But really, when you look at rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players there that I think they can contribute. So you might end up with some players, some special teams players, some players who can start, maybe not year one, but over the long term. So not a bad draft by the Buffalo Bills. I think they did an okay job finding some talent and maybe some starters in this year's drafts, and nobody that can really just hammer them for overdrafting. I think they just get hammered because of the fit with Keon Coleman and trading down with one of their arch nemesis, the Kansas City Chiefs, and allowing them to get the receiver that they wanted. So, I can't really nitpick them too much in their draft grade, I guess, for that. But it is a little bit of a factor. So overall, decent draft by the Buffalo Bills. It's not one of the upper echelon drafts in the NFL draft. I think I have them in like the top 20 or so, but top 20, top 25. But honestly, there were not very many teams this year who just had terrible drafts. So once you start looking, when I do my rankings from 1 through 32, you'll see that really, I think once you start getting teams in the range 24th ish, 25th, somewhere in that range, all the way up to 1, like all those teams probably had pretty solid drafts. I think anybody in the back end of the draft, there's a few that I just think had absolutely rough drafts. So we'll get into that in a later episode. But for now, let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Miami Dolphins, I think, hit some home runs. And then, one of their picks I'm not a big fan of, but I understand why other draft pundits and scouts were all over this player. That's their first-round pick, Chop Robinson. Listen, Chop has unbelievable athletic traits, and I understand that the defensive end position, like cornerback and maybe wide receiver and some others, that you just bet on those athletic traits. But the problem is with Chop is that that's all I see that he has. He has athletic traits that didn't translate very well in college to finishing with sacks, right? He didn't finish well at all. He could get some pressures, and he did look like sometimes a man amongst boys. But when you get to the NFL and that playing field is more evened out with athleticism, is he going to be able to succeed? Is he going to develop a pass rush plan? Is he going to develop some moves? He's the polar opposite of what the Colts drafted in Laiatu Latu, right? Latu isn't the super athletic freak, but man, when he has just so many moves, so many tools in the toolbox, and we'll get to them when we talk about the Indianapolis Colts. But I just don't see it with Chop Robinson. I did not have him very highly rated. I think I barely had him in my top 10 overall edges. Yeah, some teams are just going to bet on that athletic freak and just say, hey, he's going to figure it out, and get him some coaching and you teach him some stuff. And if he figures it out, you got yourself a dominant all-pro type player. But if he doesn't figure it out, he's out of the league in a couple of years. And I just think doing, first round top 20, 25 pick, it's a lot to, ask yourself to do. And the risk reward there, the reward could be high, but the risk is that player's out of the league in a couple of years. I just don't know if that's something that I'd be comfortable with, picking in the top 20 to 25 of the first round. So I get it, but not a big fan of Chop Robinson's, and they took him in the first round. Next up, Patrick Paul, the tackle out of Houston. I think he can develop into a solid tackle. Again, the problem is what Miami has a lot of openings on their roster with some of the things they had to do with some salary cap crunching. I don't know if Patrick is ready to play in year one. Might have to, but I think he can develop into an average NFL starter. And then this is where I really love the Miami Dolphins draft, and that kind of boosted him up a little bit, in my opinion. They absolutely hammered round 4 and round 5. Getting Jalen Wright, running back out of Tennessee. We know Mike McDonald and the Miami Dolphins absolutely love speed, and they have speed for days on that Miami offense. Then they added quite possibly one of the best home run hitter running backs in the NFL draft this year in Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. Absolutely love that pick. You get him in round 4. And then one of my favorite edge rushers is Muhammad Kamara. Now, listen, I understand that he's a tweener, that he doesn't have the perfect overall measurables for the position, but he just wins. He can be a very good situational pass rusher. I think in year one, you may see more of an impact from their 5th-round pick, Muhammad Kamara, Colorado State, than you will their 1st-round pick. Obviously, the ceiling is much higher with Chop Robinson, but I think it's a really good pick. And then getting Malik Washington, wide receiver out of Virginia, in the 6th round. I know he's only 5'8", but he just catches the ball. You're going to see an impact from him in year one. I have no doubt about that he is going to be someone that you get some stats from in the first year, maybe a deep sleeper in your fantasy rosters. If you do play fantasy football, and if you get any injuries in Miami, I think Malik Washington's going to play this year. I think he's going to could move himself maybe up to a number 3 receiver, but I think he's a start the year as their 4th receiver. That is really good impact in round 6. And then you get Patrick McMorris, safety out of Cal. Maybe he makes the roster, kind of a special teams guy. And then you got Taj Washington, wide receiver out of LSU. So then I'd be willing to bet on that maybe he can develop into something in round 7. It's a good flyer to take in round 7. But those picks in round 4 and 5 are just absolutely home runs. I think they're going to really help Miami immediately. Or sorry, 4 rounds 4, 5, and 6. I think Kamara and Washington, you're going to see some impact with them this year. And still, the jury's still out on Chop Robinson, Patrick Paul. Made it with some other positions in those spots, but just love the fact that they just add more speed and get a really good wide receiver prospect, an underrated one in Malik Washington. So with that, the New England Patriots. And the Patriots decided not to trade out. They stayed at number 3. They seem pretty confident that they're getting their guy. They didn't even use their full allotment of time, the 10 minutes they have. And they have Drake May, quarterback out of North Carolina. I hope that Drake gets to sit for a little while. New England does not have a great situation, shall I say, surrounding class or starting cast. Definitely J.J. McCarthy, better opportunity there, better surrounding cast. Caleb Williams is going into a better surrounding cast. This Drake May is going into what you traditionally see with quarterbacks who get taken early in the draft. They don't go to very good situations. I think Drake has a lot of potential. We see a Josh Allen type potential in him. He really needs to kind of sit, learn, don't throw him to the wolves and have him lose his confidence. So I like the pick. You can nitpick again who you liked better: Daniels, May, McCarthy, Penix, Nix. I had McCarthy, May, and Daniels all kind of grouped together in a group of quarterbacks. So New England goes with their guy, Drake May. And then Jalen Polk, I like him a lot. I think he's a good sure-handed wide receiver. So look, you get a weapon for Drake. Good job. And then they come back in rounds 3 and 4. I like Hayden Wallace, but I really see him more as a backup tackle. I don't know if he's going to, or guard, right? I don't know if he's a developmental guy that's going to develop into a surefire starting tackle / guard. You back that up with Layden Robinson, the guard out of Texas A&M in round 4. Again, I think off those 2 offensive line picks there are a little bit of a reach. It's kind of typical what the Patriots do. They see their type of guy and then they pick them where they want to pick them. But then you come back in round 5 and you get Javon Baker in round 5. That is phenomenal value. I really had Javon Baker as someone who I would have taken in the 2nd or 3rd round. You get him in the 5th round and pick 110. So now you've added 2 solid receiver prospects in Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. That is good value for the New England Patriots. That is good long-term investment for Drake May. I know that they also tried to get an investment there in the offensive line. I just don't know if I like the players that they drafted there. And then you go with the long ball throwing absolute cannon of an arm, and Joe Milton as a developmental prospect. So you double up on quarterback. I don't know if Joe Milton will ever amount to anything in the NFL other than he's just fun to watch throw, of how hard of an arm he has. And then 2 other players there. They got cornerback Marcellus Dial, cornerback out of South Carolina in round 6. I don't really see more than maybe developing to a special teams type player or depth cornerback on the roster. And then Jaheim Bell, tight end out of Florida State, kind of a really good athlete, can catch the ball very well. Will he develop into something? I'm not sure. I wasn't extremely high on him as a tight end prospect, which get him in round 7. So overall, the New England Patriots had a pretty good draft class. They really did very well in getting some weapons that can develop for Drake May down the road. I think they tried to get some offensive line help there to keep Drake May upright and give him some protection. We'll see if the players they pick are ones that will work out. But overall, I think the teams in the AFC East, decent draft classes, definitely not as strong as, say, the NFC East or the NFC North and some others. But I think the New England Patriots landed just inside or maybe just outside of my top 10. The Jets probably a pick, going to end up in the mid 20s in my top 32. So, okay, draft class. We'll see how the division shakes out this year. Did the Buffalo Bills get enough talent on the defense and offensive side of the ball to kind of help Josh Allen? He's lost a lot of weapons there. And we'll see, Drake May and the New England Patriots. I still think they're going to be kind of a more bottom-feeding team in the NFL this year. They have a long way to go to fill out their roster. The Miami Dolphins, I don't know if they're going to be as good this year. They lost a lot of pieces on their offensive line and on their defense. So we'll see how they did. I think they only got 2 to 3 players who can contribute right away. I think the New England Patriots this year maybe got 2 players who will contribute this season. I think the Bills actually got more players that might contribute this season. But again, I think the Patriots are looking more long-term, trying to rebuild their roster. So with that, that is your AFC East. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share it around to all your friends who are NFL or NFL draft junkies. And I'll really appreciate that. It helps me grow the channel. And with that, we will see you on the next time on the Draft Beard podcast as we recap another division in the NFL.
The Draft Beard Podcast.